Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're looking at what is truly a major moment in the history of technology: the creation of the world's very first comprehensive rulebook for the most powerful artificial intelligence systems we've ever built.
To really get our heads around this, I want you to imagine that a new kind of giant has just appeared in our world. Now, these aren't giants from myths or legends. They are incredibly powerful AI models. And for the very first time, we as a society have to sit down and write the rules for how they're allowed to behave.
So, first things first, let's establish why these rules are so critical. We need to understand the sheer power and the potential risks that come along with these new AI giants.
The absolute core concern for regulators is a concept called systemic risk. Now, that term is actually borrowed from the world of finance. It's used to describe something that has become so big and so interconnected with everything else that if it fails, it has the potential to bring the entire system down with it.
And listen, this isn't some far-off science fiction scenario. The EU AI Act, which is the source material for this explainer, points to very real, very concrete risks. We're talking about everything from widespread disinformation that could destabilize an election to bias algorithms that might unfairly deny you a loan or a job.
So, in response to these new giants and their potential for harm, the European Union has stepped up to the plate. They've created the world's first truly comprehensive set of rules for AI, the EU AI Act.
And right at the very heart of this massive piece of legislation, you'll find Article 55. You can think of this as the specific chapter in the rulebook written just for these most powerful models, the ones the Act officially calls general-purpose AI with systemic risk.
Okay, so let's dive into the details. This rulebook sets out 4 fundamental obligations for these AI giants. And what's really fascinating is that through all the different drafts, all the debates and negotiations, these 4 core rules have stayed exactly the same. They are the bedrock of this whole thing. The first rule is actually pretty simple in concept. You can't just build one of these giants and then let it loose on the world. The companies that create them have to put them through a whole series of intense stress tests before they're ever released to the public. Now, what's really interesting here is this requirement for adversarial testing. So what does that actually mean? Well, it's basically like hiring a team of elite hackers, sometimes called a red team, to do nothing but actively try to trick, break, or misuse the AI. The whole point is to find the system's weaknesses before criminals and other bad actors do.
The second rule moves beyond just the technical side of things. It forces the creators to step back and look at the bigger picture, to assess the potential for harm on a massive societal level.
And this, I think, brilliantly illustrates the proactive philosophy of the Act. See, it's not good enough to just fix problems after they've already happened. Instead, companies have to actively imagine how their AI could be used, misused, map out how failures might cascade through our power grids or financial systems, and then build real concrete plans to stop those worst-case scenarios from ever happening. Rule number 3 is a cornerstone of accountability, and it's very straightforward. If something goes seriously wrong, you are legally obligated to report it. You can't just hide it. So, as you can see from this timeline, a company generally has about 15 days to report a serious incident once they've figured out their AI was the cause. But in the most extreme cases, like when there's widespread harm, that reporting has to be almost immediate. And this creates a vital feedback loop. It lets regulators see the big picture, spot dangerous trends across the entire market, and act before a small problem can become a systemic one. And that brings us to the 4th and final core rule. If you are going to build something this powerful and this valuable, you have a fundamental obligation to protect it like a fortress. And we're not just talking about standard IT security, like firewalls. This means defending against very unique AI-specific attacks. Things like data poisoning, where an attacker might secretly feed the AI corrupted data during its training to create a hidden vulnerability. Or model extraction, which is basically the theft of the AI's digital brain, the code and weights that make it work. So we've covered the 4 core rules that these AI giants have to follow. But how do the companies actually prove they're doing it? Well, the rulebook is strict, for sure, but it's not totally rigid. It actually gives companies a couple of different pathways they can follow to show that they are building trustworthy AI. On one side, you have the formal path. This involves following official, top-down, harmonized standards. If you meet these, you get what's called a presumption of conformity, basically a green light. But on the other side, there's a more collaborative path, developing and following codes of practice.
This is a more flexible, bottom-up approach, where the industry can adapt quickly as the technology changes. It's a really interesting attempt to balance strict safety with fast-paced innovation.
All right, so we've walked through the problem, the solution, and the core rules that make it work. But after all of that, let's zoom out. Why does this very specific rulebook from Europe really matter to the rest of us?
It matters because ultimately the goal here is to build an ecosystem of trustworthy AI. It's all about creating a world where we can get all the incredible benefits of this technology while still having confidence that the biggest risks are being managed properly.
This rulebook is really Europe's attempt to steer the future. It's about protecting citizens from discrimination, trying to slow down the flood of misinformation, and, crucially, making sure that a human is always in control. And because the EU market is so huge, these rules could very well end up being the blueprint for AI regulation all around the world.
The EU AI Act is, without a doubt, a monumental first step. It is the first time anyone has tried to write a comprehensive rulebook for these AI giants. But it leaves us with one final and absolutely crucial question for the future. In a field that is changing faster than we can even comprehend, will this first set of rules be enough to guide what comes next?